previous meeting?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting. Daryl here.
Thanks, Daryl. Any no errors or omissions? Nobody's got their hands up, so everybody must have thought it was okay. So all in favor? Do a show of hands. Great, appreciate that. I think we got everybody there, did we, Arlene?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Including Daryl, we have everyone as carried.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And so I guess we'll move along. We have $37,083 left to give away in this fund, and we'll probably do some of that today. So I'll turn it over to, I guess, Katie, are you introducing the first one for Liam Tinworth?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to go back to there was a action item on the previous meeting minutes to come back with the list of sports that I think we should probably review before we start going through any of the applications, because a couple of them that are on here may or may not be approved based on what sports we go ahead with approving. So at our last meeting, the only feedback I had really received on the list of sports was from, I think it was Thomas who brought up mixed martial arts, and Daryl wasn't here to help us kind of navigate mixed martial arts. So that was the only one kind of excluded from the list that came up. And I don't know if we have it covered off with things that are currently on the list, or Daryl, if you have any recommendations on where you think mixed martial arts might fit.
Well, I guess mixed martial arts is trying to get into the Olympics, the Los Angeles Olympics. It's through IMAF, International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, and I believe they're based out of Britain, the UK. And I know they are tied in with the UFC and things like that. And that's something they are working towards. So if you're looking for some sort of guidelines, that's what the amateur mixed martial arts is going towards. So I don't know if that helps or anything like that. No, there is quite a large in the world, the amateur mixed martial arts, but as for a sport, I don't know what kind of definition you're going by. I mean, there is boxing involved, there is taekwondo that's in the Olympics, there's judo, and all of those feed into a mixed martial arts kind of background, and wrestling, of course, too. So it's a combination of all of those sports all into one that are already Olympic classified. So I don't.
Okay. So do you think there's another, Daryl, are you on the phone or can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. I just don't have access there. I'm at work and my computer here at work doesn't have the camera. It's a little outdated, but
that's okay. So can you see the list of sports I have up right now?
Where would that be? All I see right now.
I think I shared the wrong one. One sec. There we go.
Katie, just while you're doing, I see Thomas had his hand up. I'll just let him jump in here while you're setting it up as well, please.
Sure.
You want to go ahead, Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope all is well. I think as a committee, we should stay away from variations of different martial arts. So if we stuck to a catch-all of martial arts, then we would not have to adjudicate these different varieties. We talk about things like mixed martial arts being part of this, which I agree it should be. But what about things like Aikido and Judo and Karate? Those are all forms of martial arts. So my recommendation is that we recognize martial arts as a over-encompassing term, and then we just use that. And then all of these would be within that.
So would that include boxing? As that is a martial art?
If it's a martial art, yes, but I think it would also could be captured with some of our other governing body regulations that we've discussed.
So what about Taekwondo then? Would that be a martial art?
Taekwondo
or Judo,
is a Korean...
because they are separated in the Olympics.
Yeah, but Taekwondo is a Korean martial art, so
yep.
Yeah.
So, and Judo is separated in, like, they're totally different styles. And then what about wrestling? Is that considered a martial art?
Well, I don't think
just because it's based out of a certain country, these have gone worldwide now. And I mean, you could say that Greco-Roman wrestling is separate from wrestling. So is that a martial art?
Well, I'm not. Let me just clarify my position real quick, if you don't mind. I'm not saying that everything needs to fit under a martial art, or it doesn't qualify. What I'm saying is that these variations of defined martial arts should be captured. Otherwise, we're going to have the same conversation when every single variation comes, like Aikido and Judo and all sorts of the variations that we're going to face. And there's probably hundreds of martial arts. So that's why I'm saying stay away from that. Wrestling, I don't know if that's a martial art, but I would imagine it would be captured in some of our other criterion.
Any other comments?
Thanks. If I may, Councilor Platt, Chair Platt, it's Eunice here. I'm completely in agreement with Thomas, and it's not to. I don't think we need to delineate what each of these sports is. I think having martial arts as sort of an umbrella, or even a broader umbrella of sort of hand-to-hand combat sports, it is fine with me. I think the spirit of that is meant to be inclusive of them and not exclusive of them, is what I'm hearing. So I'd be great with that.
Okay. Thanks for that, Eunice. Julia?
Yeah, maybe just adding to that, each of these underneath that has their own governing body, correct? And so that would mean that as long as they are a combat sport and have a governing body, they would fit our criteria. Am I understanding that correctly?
Katie, do you want to jump in there? I just want to make sure that...
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify, so we can add martial arts or whatever we choose as a list on this sport list, but do we want to keep in things like, because Judo, I already had Judo, karate, like wrestling's on here, Taekwondo is on here. So do you want me to keep those on the list and add a category for martial arts, or what? I don't know which makes the most sense. Like, I'm good either way. I just want to make sure once this list is done, then we can circulate it to people who might be asking if their sport is covered. So I just want to be clear when we send it out publicly that people are aware if their sport's included or not.
Okay, fair enough. Eunice, if you don't mind, I'll just let Tammy go ahead, and then you can go right after her, please. Tammy just had her hand up already. So.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Just follow me.
Sorry, Eunice. The comment I had is we have to make sure that these are all having associations, right? That they're filling out that particular area of our application, that we're not just taking them because they have a willy-nilly association, if that makes any sense. That's actually falling upon like a worldwide or national association that, because that's one of our things that we're looking for, sports that are very particular and they have achievements in them. We're not looking for just people who are just having an exercise program. So I think we need to make sure that when we go to these other martial arts areas, Like they probably have their association, but their association might be just here and there. It's not within a larger umbrella.
More of a national umbrella, is that what you're thinking, Tammy, or provincial, or?
Well, yeah, because they all have to be like within the standing of a provincial, national, or international by what we're trying to do. We're trying to pursue excellence here. We're not trying to encourage somebody's personal sport, right? We're trying to pursue excellence here within our community and for the standing of Alberta and for Canada. That's what the premises of Pursuit of Excellence was made for. That's the money that it was brought in from the Canada Winter Games and from the Arctic Winter Games. It was from those funds that were brought in from pursuing elite sport. So the associations would have to be at least in reference to that.
Okay,
that
I
is my
appreciate
feeling
that.
anyhow. Like, and that's where the martial arts might get a little kind of fuzzy in some edges there. Where the ones that Katie has on here, most of them, I think all of them are represented within, you know, some kind of demographic of, you know, Canadian or Olympic or that kind of area, or the Arctic Winter Games that we're actually honoring where our money comes from.
Okay, no, thanks for that, Tammy. That makes sense to me too. Councillor Friesen?
Thanks, Chair Palat. I agree with you, Tammy. I thought that was explicit already, that this is a platform for us to help athletes reach beyond Grande Prairie, provincial, national, international level. Whether it's, I know we talk a lot about Olympic sports, but there are some sports that I think it's valuable to support at this committee that may not necessarily be Olympic sports, but do have that that regulation and that expansion of achievement when certain you know, levels are hit by these athletes, and that's really important. But why I had first put up my hand was back to Katie's point about, how do we leave them categorized or leave them individual? I appreciate that they're all written out individually, but I think for simplicity's sake, if my 2 cents worth is that it would be nice perhaps to have categories under which you can understand whether your sport is there or not. Whatever that looks like. So martial arts or person-to-person combat, sports, maybe we've got some examples listed under that. Water sports, perhaps we have examples listed. I don't know. That's just an idea that, if we can sort of capture them up into broader categories, it would be easier to go and look to see if your sport, whether or not it's specifically referred to, would be worth sending in an application for.
Okay. Well, makes sense, Eunice. Leanne?
Thanks, Wade. Can you hear me?
Yep, you bet.
Okay, sorry for being late, joining you lately. Just a question, and maybe it was addressed earlier, but was there any consideration for some of those sports that, I agree with Eunice's definition of pursuit of excellence, what we're trying to accomplish. But a lot of times, those that are trying to get to that next level, that's where the funding, lack of funding is. If you're an elite athlete, there always seems to be a funding available, but if you're trying to get to that next level, that's where the funding seems to be the hardest to try and get anyway.
Councillor Platt, may I just clarify?
You bet, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right, Leanne. I didn't mean that the individual has to be at that level. But they have to be working hard in a sport that can get them to that next level. So if it doesn't have to be an international event or a national or a provincial event. If it is, you know, a workshop here or coaching here, that from there, that I didn't mean to exclude that at all.
Because I wanted to clarify, like with the Arctic Winter Games, I was involved in that, and having had kids in hockey, my kids were played in the GPAC team, so they were considered the elite athlete for hockey, and that unfortunately excludes them from playing in the Arctic Winter Games. So there's a little bit of they're at odds with each other, the pursuit of excellence and the Arctic Winter Game athlete, right? Or not the athlete itself, but the qualifications for some of it.
Okay. Katie, can I just clarify, is it not mandated that they have to be an affiliate to provincial or national sport or association of some kind already?
Yeah, so currently it indicates that they have to provide a confirmation of membership letter with the provincial or national sport organization. The problem is some of these niche sports, if you will, don't necessarily have one yet, or they're operating off the international level, whatever the rules are at the international level. So that happens sometimes. And the other thing I just wanted to add too is regarding the elite athlete piece. So any athletes that are carded, so they're like a junior or senior level athlete, are not eligible for Pursuit of Excellence funding because they get funded at the national level. So some of the athletes that are already competing and going to nationals or international events may not be eligible for POE funding. So I think that allows us a lot more opportunity to fund provincial level athletes. And then the other piece was, so skateboarding, for example, might be added into a future Olympics. They're not currently on this list. So do we need to put a clause in saying that other sports may be considered, just so that that opens it up to allow us to fund some of these other niche sports that might come out of nowhere?
So I'll just call my own number because I'm not seeing any hands up, but I'm just wondering if there's maybe a will to look at us having a discretionary amount of maybe $2,000 a year, or pick a dollar amount for other that we deem other sports, and then we have to, because this could be an ongoing annual thing, and it's probably good that we're having this conversation about switching this, but there are going to be always sports that feels like that fall just outside of that boundary. So I wonder if we just set aside a maximum amount of money from this that we can only put to other, instead of trying to get so prescriptive on it. Just another thought. And if that sport ends up being something that we're funding continually every year, then maybe it makes the list. And we can still, because I hate to discourage somebody that's trying to pursue excellence and their sport hasn't reached a national or a provincial platform yet, and that maybe a lot of multi-sport kids become very successful in other sports. So I just want to make sure we're not missing somebody because they don't quite fit an affiliation yet, and that could be an up-and-coming sport. So just a thought for the group. Any other comments on this, Leanne?
Thank you. Just for clarification, so this is a competitive process, and we only have a finite amount of money to give out, right? So even those that are up and coming, if they don't apply, then we're just going to end up carrying that money forward from year to year. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So I guess my concern is we don't want to not fund somebody just because we set aside for somebody who we're hoping is going to come or might come. I think if it's a competitive process, it's open to everybody to apply, and it's up to this group to determine whether or not we think that they're an up-and-coming sport and fund them appropriately.
Yeah, and I think for me, and that works clear, and I think for me, I was just thinking more within the funding, we could have up to a certain amount of discretionary spending for sports on a list. That doesn't, in my head, that didn't mean that we wouldn't fund the whole fund if nobody showed up, that we wouldn't actually allocate that money that would be earmarked for anything only for other. Like if nobody showed up for other, we'd still spend it and we try to give it to other athletes. There's more of a mechanism to maybe safeguard that we could have some money going to others. within this fund for now, instead of trying to get really prescriptive on trying to figure out exactly which ones are in and out. Anybody else want to jump in? Daryl, you kind of started us off, and you got quiet on us. I'm not sure if you're still there, but did you have any other comments on we went around the horn on this?
No, I'm still here. I don't quite understand why we want to lump the mix or all the combative sports into one, because that kind of limits their funding too, right? Because we would then have it as a maximum, what is it, Katie, $7,000 per year per. So then where do we limit it? I'm just looking at the list here, like your canoe, kayak, your rowing, and perhaps even as far as, you know, do those get lumped together then as well? Because they're both in a boat and they're both propelled by paddles through the water. So then you say that your boxing is a striking, taekwondo is a striking, is wrestling, then there's still combative sports. I just want to wrap my head around the thinking of that, right? So your skiing is still you're on skis, whether it's cross country skiing, downhill skiing, freestyle skiing. Does that get lumped together then? Sure. What criteria is it that we're looking at by lumping combative sports into one as compared to lumping? I mean, you could go as far as saying that your tennis, your volleyball, because we're shooting over top of a net. I don't quite understand why you'd want to lump those sports all together, because a wrestler is completely different than a boxer. Like, there is no striking in a wrestling. There is no striking in judo. I don't quite understand that, but if that's the way you feel that you want to lump things together, then we have to look at lumping other things together. Another one would be equestrian and rodeo. You know, I don't know.
Okay. No, well, thanks for that, Daryl. I think we're just spitballing ideas for now. So I'll go back to Eunice, because I think this was her thought, and then Julie, you can go after her.
Thanks, Chair Platt. My comments on categorizing like that really have to do with just ease of figuring out where your sport might land, or searching whether or not it's covered, that sort of thing, and more to understand the principles of this. Has nothing to do with, from what I was getting at, has nothing to do with limiting what the amounts that we're giving to each sport. It's completely different.
But isn't that what it would do, though? Is if you lump them together, then they reach a maximum.
No, sorry, I wasn't even contemplating that when I made that suggestion. Truly, what I was looking at was, is there just an umbrella that we can, so that we don't exclude any martial arts, for example, because that's where this began. Martial arts such as, and then list, but that doesn't, not to mean that it's limiting to those ones, but just to give examples of these are the kinds of things that we're looking at as inclusive. Does that help? I don't mean it to limit the categories where we give money at all. It's more of a search term, or I'm looking at like dance, for example. So searching dance and seeing that it's not in there, but searching some obscure martial art that is now kind of coming into its own on the world stage, and we haven't actually included it yet. So if someone's searching that and it's not included, but we see that martial arts such as, and now perhaps they can make, it makes sense to them to go ahead and put in an application, which may then bring these new sports to mind for us. That's what I was thinking. So I'll just leave it at that though. But I don't mean it to be exclusionary nor limiting in terms of where we send, put our funding.
Just before I get to Julie and Leanne here, I just want to ask Katie, so normally if an applicant were to apply, they get a hold of you, are they looking for specific, do they need to see exactly if their name's on there, or do they usually contact you and find out later if they figure out if they fit the buckets or not?
Usually they just send in the application form, and if it's a sport that's not typically funded, I usually just let them know if it's something that the committee usually approves or not. Most of the time they just ask me to present it anyways because they just want to try and see if the committee will approve it. So I was just thinking that maybe if it's not a sport on the list, we ask them to submit an extra letter or something indicating why their sport should be funded, or if they're an up and coming sport, they're a demo sport for the Olympics, or whatever it might be, just to outline why we should consider funding that sport. And then we can follow up with some research on our end too to see kind of what's going on with that sport. That might be a solution.
Well, I like that idea. Okay, we'll go back to Julie, I'll just have to hit your mute button, I guess, if you want to jump in.
Okay, sorry, you kind of cut out there for a second. My point was very similar to Katie's. I was just going to say maybe we leave the list as is, and then maybe put a note that says, if you are emerging sports or whatever we want to call them, if your sport isn't on this list, feel free to contact us and we can make a determination on a case-by-case basis or something along those lines. So if there is a new form of martial arts that becomes more popular, we have room to make that assessment. If someone contacts us and says, I want to apply for dance, we can say, no, we've already determined dance is not part of this. And we would encourage you to apply to this other fund, which does fund dance. So we kind of have those responses available.
I like that. Leanne?
Thank you, Wade. I guess that was going to partly be my comment as well, is that, if people are just making an application and putting it out there hoping for the best, maybe it might be our opportunity to ask some of those groups to come make presentations to us so we have a better understanding, instead of just always looking at the funding. Here we're going to fund it, we've got X amount of dollars, we'll divide it up as much as easily as we can. Maybe it's our responsibility to ask some of these to come and talk to us about their sport and where they see their sport going, because that would give us a better understanding how we should look at funding them in the future. If they're just one-off athletes, maybe they need more support than the group they've got a larger group, right, that can help fund with some of their training or some of that. And I'm not picking on any group in particular, but we've done a good job, I believe, from the limited amount of information that I have from being on the committee. We've done a really good job of funding certain groups, and it's not a criticism, but the individuals, all of us individuals have an affiliation to a certain sport or not. And so we've done a good job of advertising it to those people, our friends or groups of friends or whatever. But there's probably lots of them on here that it's an individual person looking for some funding. And so they search on the web to find, funding for sports development or coaches clinics or something like that. And, those are the individuals that are putting out the individual applications and may need more support, but we don't understand their processes properly. So that's just my point. And it's not a criticism about anybody that's been allocated funds in the past. It's just that I think, the issue is getting out to the organizations that there's funding available and that people have to apply if they need the financial help.
Okay, no, thanks for that, Leanne. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Julia's comments and a few others who have echoed that we should allow the opportunity for these other sports to speak and share the knowledge of their particular sport or perceived sport. My concern, I think, with this list is in some areas we capture all of that sport, including all of the little subunits that branch off of it, but then in others we are very, very specific. So, for example, with the martial arts, we right now on this list have the third most popular variation and the fifth most popular variation, and those are the only two represented on here in the top 8 of martial arts. Judo is not in the top 8, but so still, the point I'm trying to make here is that I do think that, for example, cheerleading, Katie can speak to this better than anyone, there's probably a whole bunch of different cheerleading forms that the athletes will compete for. So that's why I think not being so specific is good, and then we can interpret later. But if I were a judo, an Aikido athlete, for example, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, which is the number 1, I'd be like, wow, I can't do this because I'm not in Taekwondo or Judo. So I think it's a longer standing issue. I think the short-term solution is to just allow everyone the opportunity. But on the back end, when they ask why we haven't provided funding, I think we need to have a consistent rationale, and I'm concerned that we don't as of right now. And like the Reeve said, this isn't to knock anyone who's done this work in the past, because I think this is great.
Well, good comments there. I'm just wondering, Katie, if this list said these are sports that we have funded in the past, we left it at that, and then we come up with some criteria. If you don't hit the list, we need this form signed, we need you to present the committee. Are those the kind of things that we could do to keep this flexible, so that we're still pretty nimble on who can apply without not knowing? And I like Leanne's comment about them coming and speaking. I think an important part, if we're going to try to groom athletes that are pursuing excellence, they're going to have to learn how to go out and fundraise. They're going to have to learn how to go out and get corporate sponsorship. They're going to have to learn how to do that. So for them to come to this committee and actually have to go through this is a process that they probably should learn. And it's a process we can help them with if we want to try to help them evolve their athletic careers, because we're only going to be able to fund them so much. They're going to have to go self-fund, a good portion of it. So I like the idea of, if it doesn't fit the list, where possible, Zoom is going to be here for a bit. It makes it a little bit easier for people to maybe jump on a call. But I know years ago when I was on this committee, we had quite often that some people would come, delegates would come right in person, and they would represent either themselves or it'd be a coach representing their athlete. And I thought that was a great way to really get to know these athletes and individuals and the coaches and the volunteers involved. So I'd like something like that to be implemented. If it doesn't fit the list, I think that there's a way we could make this prescriptive. And at Thomas's point and Leanne's point, I don't think anybody's upset or disappointed. We're trying to figure this out. That's why Katie brought it up, and that's why she reminded me when we had the minutes saying that we need to get this dealt with. So just some wordsmithing and maybe some policy tweaks is all we need, instead of being so prescriptive on who's on the list. It's just a thought.
Yeah, and maybe it just needs to be worded like sports typically funded by the Pursuit of Excellence Committee. And if your sport's not on this list, like on our end, when we receive the applications, like if your sport's not on this list, here's your options to come to the committee and present. And then as far as the rationale for declining, I think dance was a fairly simple one, because we have an alternative source of grant opportunity for dancers. For other sports, I think we'll just have to address it on a case-by-case basis, because we don't typically have other sports that have been declined unless we've run out of money. There hasn't really been any other ones other than we had deferred the rodeo one, which I put on this agenda once we determine if it's going to be funded or not. But other than that, I haven't seen, maybe Tammy has, but I haven't seen in my time any other sports that were declined.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Katie. That's good.
There might have been the dog one a few years ago, dog training of some kind.
Okay. Leanne?
So I guess my question would be, instead of listing all the sports on there, why wouldn't we just say we fund athletes that are trying to achieve them or trying to pursue excellence at a national, provincial level through coach clinics or through training, and leave it at that and say one of the other qualifiers is that they can't qualify for other funding such as the arts funding if you're a dancing academy, something along that line, because that leaves it wide open for everybody to apply, but make them understand that they need to make a presentation to this committee and basically sell us on why we should fund them. Because I think that's the part, like right now, Katie goes through the application, and it's not that she's not doing a good job of it, but the individual that's making that application, as you said, Wade, is going to, this is a very minimal amount of the funding that they'll be able to are going to need if they're going to move themselves to that next level of athlete funding. And it's a good avenue for them to have to practice to try and figure out how they're going to do fundraising.
Well, I agree. Tammy, you had your hand up there?
So listening to everybody here, I have to admit, I for myself, I don't have a negative about what the list is, because in the end, it's not, I know it's about the athlete, but it's more about pursuing coaching and reffing. That's where our funds are really supposed to be directed at, and that was the initial intent of Pursuit of Excellence. It wasn't so much the athlete, they were available to the monies, but for coaching, so we can't limit our list for that reason, right? Because we want to, that was the encouragement of coaching to see our community grow in our sport. So that's where I kind of stand with the list, because my look at it is from the coaching end of it and the training end of it to grow sports in our community. Everybody seems to be more caught up in the athlete. So again, I'll go back to, I want to be able to see in our applications that they you know, that they are an association. Something that nobody's taken mind to is there a fiscal gain in their sport? There used to be a line in our application at some point that said, you know, do you get a fiscal gain? Like, do you get paid, or do you get a prize, a fiscal prize at the end? And that was on the application, and it's not on there anymore. And when we got applications in the very, very past that had fiscal on there, that was taken into account, because that was another kind of a sport. So most of them aren't. I think maybe some of them might be on this list. Once you go professional, some of them might be. And I don't know. I have a real question about how the athletes are being looked at, and I'm looking at this because I'm getting the dance stuff in, and I'm questioning rodeo. I am questioning that because there's a fiscal thing, and I don't know about the how the training of coaching is, because that's what we want to be looking at, is coaching. So yeah, the rodeo kids could come here, but in the end, I want to be able to see coaching.
Yep, solid point, Tammy. That's definitely part of what this fund is supposed to be doing. Leanne?
Thanks, Wade. I guess my comment would be on that, and I don't, not to take away from the coaching part of it, but as a parent of an athlete that coaching was not available in Grande Prairie for him, you had to go outside, and it didn't matter really what you did to try and attract those coaching opportunities to Grande Prairie and the area. It's economies of scale and size of the facilities, right? Sometimes that's an issue. So, you know, like, for example, with rodeo, that might be a problem because you only have 2 kids up here that may, or out of the high school rodeo group or whatever, might only be 2 or 5 or whatever. And if you happen to go to, I don't know, pick Calgary, you know, you're gonna draw 150. So it's really, it's hard to, so a lot of times you have to fund the athlete to be able to go take the coaching. And not to say that it discourages anybody from trying to bring the coaching to Grande Prairie area. Sometimes it's just the reality is they don't want to come this way, right? It's based on the size of the activity.
Okay. I'm just going to let Tammy go, and then I'm going to jump in here and see if we can move this forward. So go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, I don't think as a group, as Pursuit of Excellence, as a committee, we're not saying that we promote the kids to go to Canmore or Eastern Canada or wherever they have to get their training, and we are more than willing to fund in some way and help them out. Like, that's the purpose of this, right? But the main purpose was to encourage the coaching training here in this area. And yes, there's some coaching we'll never be able to make. Like if you're an elite swimmer, right? If you're a Canadian national swimmer, well, you got to go to Eastern Canada to train. That's just the way it is. But we do want to encourage the growth here in this area of our coaching, because we don't want to lose sports because they lack in their funding within their clubs to be able to encourage coaching. We want to be able to see them grow and continue to grow, or continue to achieve a stability within the coaching in this community. And that's probably why we're only funded $40,000. If it was about the athletes, we'd have hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to move them around and support them.
Okay. So I guess, Katie, this all kind of started with us hoping to get some criteria about what didn't hit the list. So we've had a lot of talk about the list, and I appreciate all the conversation. I just feel like we do need to kind of move this forward at some point. And I'm just wondering, it seems, and maybe I'm trying to surmise here a little bit, it seems like there was a lot of, what if it doesn't hit the list? What do we do then? And where do we go from there? So I'm just wondering if we can update and come to a consensus on, if something doesn't hit the list, what our process would be looking forward. So some of the comments we're presenting to committee, what affiliations they have, if they're a new sport, maybe educating us on the sport that they're trying to get funding for. I'm just wondering if we use those ABC as criteria now, and if I'm missing something, please put up your hand. But if we use those as an ABC for what's on the list, not on the list now, would that be comfortable for the committee to have us have something in place, at least if somebody didn't hit the list? So those were present to committee, tell us what affiliations, and educate us on their new sports, or I guess, yes, the sport. Any comments on that, or does that work for people if we try?
I think it's a good idea. I also think it's a good idea for the ones that are on the list to come and show us those things and tell us about their sport.
Yeah, well, I think wherever we can, we should encourage it, for sure. Thomas, you're okay with that? Julie, you okay with that? Leanne? Eunice? Okay. So Katie, does that work for you? Does that give you enough direction from committee if we kind of use those as the ABCs if they don't fit the list for now, to give you a little bit more confidence and a little bit more direction, I guess, when people are applying?
Yep, for sure. That will help. And if there's anything weird that comes out of left field, I'll reach out to the committee in advance of the meeting to see if it's something really random and off the wall. I'll reach out and say, would you like this person to come and present, and just make that connection in advance to see if there's anything we can do to try to move it forward.
Okay, and I guess, does committee want to see an updated draft of this, of our I believe we have a little brochure now that Katie would be able to send them. Do we want to see that updated with this on it, or how do you guys want to handle that? Just kind of trust that Katie's looking after it. Leanne?
The brochure, do you think they're relevant still? People are using so much social media and web browsers and things like that. Like, are the brochures still relevant?
It was more just for criteria reasons, I think, Leanne. Just that's kind of templated now. So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a brochure format, just whatever Katie's just setting them out to be updated. Do we want to see it, or do we just?
No, I'd like to see it, please.
Yeah, we don't actually do a brochure anymore. We had done some postcards up last year or the year before, just like a double-sided card showing the map of the region that's covered. And then on the other side, it just had some basic information about the fund. Because I know some councillors were getting asked about it, and so they had something to hand out if they were asked about the fund.
Yeah. So Katie, would it be possible just to have that updated for our next meeting? And just, do you need a motion to do that, or are you comfortable just doing that? I'm not sure, Arlene, if that's something we need a motion because we're changing the criteria or not, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always a good idea for a committee to take action through a formal motion that allows the entire committee to vote on the action, and then it's properly documented in the minutes that are published.
Okay, great, thanks for that. So would somebody, Eunice, thank you.
Yeah, I can make that motion then that we ask Katie or administration to update the postcard as needed and bring it back to the committee for final approval. And just to speak to that, I left it a little bit open because I'm just looking at it here online, and it is really just direct to athlete development, bidding for sport events, coach, official, and volunteer development, hosting workshops, clinics, and symposiums, so on. Travel funding is the last point. I just would ask, as you're looking at this, Katie, can you move coach, official, and volunteer development maybe up to the top? Because that really, although athlete development captures it, but coach is kind of lost in the middle there. But I really appreciate Tammy's comments about the importance of coaching, and that's really ideally what this is about, because every dollar we spend on coaching goes out to numerous athletes as opposed to a singular athlete. So I think that's an important consideration. So anyway, that's the motion.
Thanks for that, Eunice. I seen Stephanie had her hand up. I'm not sure if it was just around the motion or.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. I'm wondering, because I don't have one of the cards in front of me, does it reference the website on it? I wonder, maybe, my understanding is that we still have quite a large volume of cards printed.
Yeah, it does, cityofgp.com/POE, and it also has Facebook on there. It has the Pursuit of Excellence email address, and it has a phone number.
So my suggestion, and simply just a suggestion, would be maybe that we look at doing the list in a graphical format that can be posted on the website and shared via Facebook instead of reprinting.
Great comment, Stephanie. Yeah. Okay, any other comments on Eunice's motion, Tammy?
I just wanted to, I'm not too sure if we have to, but before we make too many changes and think that we're all on our road to go down the street with our new vehicle, I wanted to make sure, because we are a city committee, do we need to take this to the council for to make sure that they're approving all our changes and what we're doing? Because I know in the original way back, and Katie has these copies, it says that decisions and changes from the committee are require approval by the council. So I just want to make sure, is this a change that requires that, or do we keep going, right? So.
Well, I see Katie's hand up, but I was going to ask Arlene too, but if Katie's comfortable with it.
Yeah, so the minutes will still have to go through the next council meeting anyway, so I can't actually cut checks or anything until the minutes of this meeting go through council. So any motions or changes that are made in this meeting go through one final review at the council meeting, and Councillor Platt would present any highlights from this particular committee, and then council would make the final vote at that time.
Okay. Good question, Tammy. Thank you. Arlene, did you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as far as the committee's authority to spend money, it's true, the minutes do get approved by council, but the authority of the committee itself is approved by council. So if you choose to change some form of the terms of reference or the mandate of the authority of this committee, that would be something for council to weigh in on and approve.
Okay. Which is something I'm, fine with presenting if that's the will of the committee. I'm sure the council would see the value in why we're updating this process. So, if I don't see any other hands up, so I'm just going to ask for everybody's, I'll ask the question, all in favor, and then I'll come to you, Daryl, after, if that's okay, you can just let us know. So, all in favor?
Can I have the motion read, please? Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, Wade, can I have the motion read back, please?
You bet, Tammy. I'll ask Katie or Arlene if they can read back how they deciphered Eunice's motion.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll read the motion. Moved by Councillor Friesen, Committee Direct Administration to update the Pursuit of Excellence postcard as needed and bring it back to the committee for final approval.
Okay, that's pretty generic. All right.
It was interesting, so Tammy, I think, Katie's heard our discussion, and I have faith that between her and communications, they'll update, review, and they'll be able to update to what we've talked
about. Okay, I'm more comfortable with you, Tammy?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll have a chance to approve it when it comes to the next committee. So if we're not happy with the wording, we can get into wordsmithing next committee instead of just ideas. I guess that'll be a good one. But so I'll ask the question: all in favor of Eunice's motion? And Daryl, how do you vote?
Yes, I'm in favor. Okay,
I believe that captured everybody, Arlene. And so we will move on to our next item on the agenda, and I'll ask Katie sorry, Katie, I just want to clarify, was that everything that you needed to get from the previous minutes? And are we good to move forward?
Yes, we are good to move forward. That was everything.
Thank you. So I'll just ask you if you could introduce Liam Tinworth and his application, please.
Sure. So the first application we have today is Liam Tinworth. He's a biathlon athlete, and I believe he also does cross-country skiing, so he's kind of doing two different sports. He's done quite well representing Northern Alberta, and he has gone down to Canmore for the summer as soon as they allowed cohort training to start. He had gone down to Canmore because he qualified for the U20 national development team. He's got a really great reference from his coach, and he was expected to do very well in his races this year, but obviously none of them happened. So he has asked for the athlete development funding, which is $1,000.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So anybody from committee want to make some comments on this one? Tammy?
Sorry, Katie, I'm just going to ask a question. I personally don't have a problem, but I have to make sure we're going about the right ways. So the camps that he wants to go to, there's 3 different camps. Now, I know one of the things we don't do in Pursuit of Excellence, we don't fund camps. So we don't fund, so are these like a high performance training, or are they like open, like membered, like open camps? I'm just asking that because this is where the development money is going to.
Right, so he did have to qualify to participate in this U20 national development team. So he was ranked and asked to be part of this U20 team. So I don't necessarily know that it's a training camp, but it's a camp for U20 athletes who qualified for this national team. It's just in Canmore. It couldn't be held here because it's a national team.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other?
Well, good on him for training.
Any other questions, or would anybody want to entertain a motion on this one? Leanne?
Mr. Chair, hearing the conversation, I feel comfortable in recommending that we fund the Liam Tinworth for $1,000 for athlete development.
Okay, thanks for the motion, Leanne. Any comments or conversation on the motion? Okay, Seeing none, again, I'll ask it, and then I'll come to you afterwards, Daryl. So all those in favor? Daryl, how do you vote?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. Thanks for that. So I guess that one is closed off. So Katie, if you wouldn't mind introducing 2.3 with Ryder Topolinski. I think I got that right.
Yeah, thank you. So this one we actually reviewed in maybe November or January, I can't remember. But it was still, we had deferred it to a future meeting until we had determined which sports were going to be eligible or not. So he had qualified for the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas, which was in December. So we may have looked at it in November. But he has asked for $2,000, which is the maximum amount of travel funding you can get. And he is eligible based on the distance traveled for the full 2,000.
Okay. Thanks for that. So questions, conversations from committee on that? I had one. I'm not seeing any hands up. So I did have one. So he can receive up to $2,000, but the committee could fund him a different amount if they chose to, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. Would anybody like to make a motion, Eunice? Question?
A motion, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. This is sort of one that we're not really all in about, but I would like to see rodeo athletes supported in some manner. I'm going to throw out that we fund Mr. Topolinski. I see that his travel costs specifically are $500, which I can surmise refer to him only and not his horse. So I would like to fund him to $500 from this committee.
Okay. Thank you for the motion, Eunice. Any conversation on that motion? Okay. Seeing none, Daryl will come to you afterwards. I'll ask the question. All in favor from the committee?
Tammy's got a, yeah.
Sorry, Leanne, did you have a question on that one?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I did. I was just going to say, Eunice, thank you very much. I appreciate the $500. I was really questioning the application because the entry fees were so much. I also had a question because I'm not too sure of, I'm not fully understanding rodeo, okay? Like, I have to be honest about it. Like, so what I'm not understanding, particularly for this one, because it was in Las Vegas, is there a fiscal prize to the end of it? Is that the reason for going? I don't know. I
think Stephanie has some insight.
Sorry, Stephanie, if you got something, jump on there, please.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For rodeo competitions, there are very few of that scale that are actually held within Canada. Most of the competitions are held in the U.S.
Yeah, this one's in the U.S.
That would be very.
Sorry?
I was just going to say that would be very common for rodeo and a number of particular equine sports. They have really limited opportunity within Canada to compete. So most of the large scale competitions are held in the U.S.
Is there any way to clarify if there was awards or potential prize winnings from that? So I think that was kind of Tammy's concern or question about it.
There's nothing in the application form about that, and I was just looking through like his coach letter. There's nothing that indicates anything about a prize.
Okay. Yeah.
Leanne? Typically, with a lot of those sports, they have to turn professional for a prize at the end. So if it's an amateur sport, of course, as everybody knows, that there's no financial gain to them. But we have several members of the rural community that have, like Shalice Head and John Newdorf's daughter, that have spent a lot of time in the States trying to become those elite athletes that have actually signed agreements with universities to represent from universities. So, you know, Kate, where Tammy was asking about rodeo, this is the same same kind of thing with that. There's actually universities that hunt kids or young excellent athletes to participate in their rodeo program. But my comment was going to be is this is a good example of someone that we should bring in and have them speak to their sport and the need for you know, support financially.
Agreed. I'm just wondering if this is what has been so long already. Is that still an opportunity or something this committee would want to do, or would we want to award funding today? Like, I mean, I guess we have a motion on the floor, but I'm just, if that's something the committee really felt we needed to have this representative come in and speak. So Eunice?
As mover, if I could speak to this, because he applied prior to the event for funding and we chose to defer the application, I think we need to consider it the same way we would consider a new application that comes in prior to the event. I think that it was our choice to defer it, so let's consider it. And just in case anyone thinks that I haven't actually got a clue, in this case, I referred to his horse, but for bareback and saddle bronc, it's not his horse. So.
Okay, so I guess for me, the motion's on the table, so we either rescind it or we go ahead with it. So I'm just going to ask if you're not comfortable with approving the motion, and obviously you don't support it, and if that didn't pass, then we can look at a secondary motion. But I'll ask the motion that we've got on the table now. So all in favor of Eunice's, and we'll go to Daryl after. Any opposed? And Daryl?
I'm in favor.
Okay. Thanks for that. I do think it's a really good for us to get in the habit moving forward that if it's new applicants or somebody, we will ask them to present, and hopefully we'll get some people that will do that. So,
yeah, in the future, if you could come by and tell us about a sport so that we're more educated on that one.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be ideal. Okay, so we'll move on to Maria and Jenna Maxwell, two separate fundings, both around Irish dance. And if Katie could introduce those, please.
Thank you. So we had also deferred these two applications. They had applied for travel funding, Come Fly With Me, Bob Neufeld, and Perky McCullough. So these were ones that we had also deferred, and they're all for Irish dance, which I believe we've determined should be directed towards arts development funding, but there is no formal motion from any previous meetings regarding these applications. So we need to make a motion in order to remove them from the agenda and refer them to arts development funding.
Okay.
Can make a motion.
Make that motion.
Julia, go ahead.
All right, I can make a motion to defer that funding to the arts development. That's the correct name of it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Julia. Any conversation on the motion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of that? And Daryl, how do you vote?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay,
I just have one question.
Okay, Katie?
Do we also, this is probably an Arlene question, do we need to formally decline their applications for POE and then refer them to arts development? I'm not sure what the proper protocol would be there.
Thank you, through the chair. One motion deferring the applications for funding to the Arts Development Committee is sufficient. The only other action you could possibly take is just to receive them for information, but the action is pretty clear in the motion, so it's good. Okay.
Thanks for that. And I guess the other things on our agenda were for the same two for different other scholarships. Was this motion kind of cover those all off then, Katie?
I will defer to Arlene. Does that cover off all of them, or do we need to do separate motions?
I think it would be prudent to do separate motions per applicant. I don't know how many applications these two individuals have, quite a few. I think we should just deal with them separately, just to be clear.
So just for clarification, Arlene, if one motion was made that said for Maria and Jenna Maxwell, the Come Fly With Me Robert Neufeld Scholarship would not be available, or do we need to go line by line of each scholarship they've applied for?
I feel that since the applications that they've submitted, it feels to me they're separate from each other, that we should deal with them separately. Okay.
So on that, I guess I'd be looking for a motion to have the Come Fly With Me funding for Maria and Jenna Maxwell deferred to Arts Development Committee.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. All in favor of the motion? Daryl?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. And I guess we'll need the same thing for the Bob Neufeld Scholarship as well.
I'll make that one.
Yeah. So thanks, Tammy. All in favor? And Daryl?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, and one more we have to do for the last scholarship they applied for.
Ricky McCullough.
Ricky McCullough one. So who has the next scholarship here? I guess Tammy, you're on, okay?
Okay.
Tammy? And all in favor on that one? And Daryl?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. And that looks like it closed all of our other items off for that. Do we have any other business at all, Katie?
I don't have anything else.
No? All right.
Wait,
well,
can I just make a comment? Can I make a comment? Sorry, I forgot to make a comment in regard to the Irish dance. I did actually look up online, and their regulations for the competitions is all online for Irish dance. And to be able to go to Worlds, they actually don't have to qualify. So yeah, they actually are exempt from qualification because they're in one of those countries that just gets to go if you apply to go.
Okay, interesting.
For finals. Yeah. So just thought I'd put that out there for you guys so you knew that.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thanks, Penny. Any other correspondence or conversation before we close out the meeting for anybody? Leanne?
Sure. Thanks, Wade. I appreciate all the feedback that we've had today, and sorry again for jumping in a little bit late. But I was wondering, are we going to move on our next meeting? Will we ask, say, the gentleman from Rodeo or somebody that has been is a new recipient of funding to make a short presentation on their sport so we have a better understanding before we, at the beginning of the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that's good. Katie, is that something that people would participate in, do you think? And is that something you could help try to set up for the next meeting?
Sure, we can certainly invite them and send them the Zoom link to jump on the call. I mean, obviously we can't guarantee that they'll be able to make it, but maybe if they say they can't attend, we'll ask them to do a written presentation that we can read in advance, if that works. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess a written presentation or a video even that we could just play or something would be great.
Sure.
I was just going to make the comment, even that some of them, some of the athletes or coaching staff or whatever, they might not feel comfortable about coming to us in particular about speaking in public about their sport. Maybe that's not their thing. And if they have a representative there that needs to do that for them, then we could have that instead. You know, so if the person's young and they just like, I don't think I can do this for the group that, you know, that's good enough to be able to represent their sport, that they say, hey, I'll have, you know, my mentor or my coach come in and help me do that.
That's fine too. Great idea, Tammy. Eunice?
Thanks, Chair Platt. I think for me, it would also be valuable to have an understanding of the sport in general rather than specifically the events. So athletes at level are event specific, I think, but I'd really appreciate having more of a well-rounded presentation that gives, for me anyway, an idea of, in general, the considerations of the sport, including what events are contained. So I don't know if, I think like Tammy said, if perhaps a representative could come and then give us a little broader overview. For me, I think that might be even more helpful.
Okay, thanks, Eunice. Leanne?
So just on that topic, I'm thinking, you know, if you want to talk about, say, high school rodeo, for example, a gentleman by the name of Ross Mather actually has been instrumental with high school rodeo, bringing the provincial and national championships here. He'd probably be a good one to speak about that particular sport and how a lot of those kids are being awarded scholarships for education as well. So he may be somebody we want to reach out to, and knowing Ross, he'd be more than happy to speak to you guys about it.
Do you have his contact information?
Yeah, I do. He's on the Evergreen Park board, so.
Okay.
Yep. For
And
sure.
usually people that are passionate about what they do like to talk about it, so it's good, good to have. Sure. Any other conversation, or are we looking to adjourn here? Everybody's had their piece and got their. All right, well, I guess with that, thanks Katie and Arlene for setting everything up and stuff, and we will see you at the next meeting. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.